looking to put 100% in, put everything on the line more than once.
It was a phenomenal price. I remember when I was like so stoked for you guys.
Back then, it was sort of like we were dipping into all the ponds, you know what I mean?
To
It was
get
like
to the next stage.
That's right.
I love the saying burn the boats because we did, there was no other option.
All right, welcome to Buying Gold Coast, episode 1. This is really exciting. New launch. It's actually a cool time. This is the last episode in this old studio, but first episode of the new series. So I thought, what better way to kick it off than having some absolute weapons in the building? And the reason I love these guys is not only are they a family of 5, they're local Gold Coasters, they're having a crack. I just think they will, I guess, show you what can happen when you put your mind to things and implementation. It feels only a few years ago when I met them and they had this pipe dream, and I'm literally seeing them achieve it. And I think it's going to add so much value to everyone on the Gold Coast. So Buying Gold Coast, our whole purpose of this podcast is to dive deep into the Gold Coast and help anyone out there, all things Gold Coast. So we've got Alex and Toby from Our Unfiltered Reno.
Hey,
so,
Matt.
guys, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having
you.
us, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Episode 1 of Buying Gold Coast 2.
It's like nostalgic. We've got the last in the studio on, first of the new podcast for you. So thank you for having us.
I was thinking about, I was like, should we just wait for the new show? I was like, no, I like the feeling of like nostalgia. Last one in here. Sort of, you guys are going to bless it into the new studio. So
I think it's good timing too, because I think we'll probably even touch on it a bit later on. But the timing to buy as well, and I think we wait another month, what difference we might be seeing in the market.
Yeah.
We're
so
very,
I think
very impatient.
Yeah, so even what's happening in our world, which we're happy to unpack, is that doing it here and now in this current marketplace. So I think it's it matches well with your branding.
Yeah, 100%. No, so Our Unfiltered Reno, so yeah, beautiful family of 5. You got 4 projects currently. I know one of them is under construction as well. So we'll dive into all of that. But I want to start with, because I don't know too much, but I know a little bit of your background before you got into what you're doing now. Just give us a quick snapshot where you're from and where did it begin.
Alex and I grew up, our family homes are about 2 kilometres from each other, but never met in our hometown of Wagga. When I'd left, Alex was
Country New South Wales.
Yeah, in Wagga.
Yes.
And when I came back, she'd moved. So, funnily enough, we got together, and from day one, it was, what do you want to do with your future? And being in the trade, I was like, property somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to do it, but somehow. And she's gone, hell yeah, that's what I want to do. Let's go.
Yeah, cool.
So our relationship literally started with dating at open homes and things like that.
Wow.
We love it. So
Dead set.
We were doing long distance for a long time, and Toby owned his place in Wagga. I remember the first time he drove me in there, he was like, the front porch isn't tiled yet, and we want to do a bathroom here and stuff like that. And he was apologising, and I was like, no, this is awesome. So every time I'd go back there, we'd like pull our money together to be able to finish that house.
wow.
So we were renovating like from day one, basically.
Wow.
To add value with the view of, okay, how do we leverage that?
Yep.
So it was always in our mind. Both our families have done a fair bit in property over the years. So I always say, like, being the youngest of 3, I grew up in the back of the car listening to like how to leverage equity, how to add value, renovating, developing, creating a portfolio. So whilst I probably didn't understand the funding side of it and things like that, I definitely, like, as soon as we met, was like, I understand that this is what we need to do. It's just a matter of how we do it. And he was quite similar. So
That's so cool.
yeah, so we always used that Wagga property as a bit of a, we looked at selling it a few times, and Toby certainly wanted to a few times, and I was like, it's not the right time. Keep it. Wait till we've got our plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and interestingly, a few years later on, it became one of the pieces that has created
being able to leverage.
Yeah,
because that market went mad.
Yeah, all those sort of bigger country towns
Didn't they?
went very well. And it's a strong economy there too. So all the fundamentals, which is our favourite word.
Yeah, there was just, you talk about the universe, right? There was just a moment in time where we looked at each other and said, we think this might be the time. We're going to get top dollar for it.
Yeah.
And it was the profit we took from that was a key piece in creating what is now known as Laguna House. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
What about just prior to that? So from country New South Wales, like, did you guys do uni? Did you have ambitions for a career? Or I know you're back, tradie, wasn't it?
Yeah, mate, I fell into every job that I've ever had.
Yeah.
the only career step I've ever chosen is this.
Yeah.
And it just I was always a good worker.
Yeah.
Wasn't always the best employee.
Yeah.
But I've had every job you can think of.
Yeah.
And at the time, it felt pointless and aimless and like a ship without a rudder.
Yeah.
But as the universe works, I've now got an amazing broad skill set that has worked in every aspect of what we do now. So whether it's fated or whether it was just deliberate or however you want to say it, I now have an amazing skill set to implement in what we do, which I wouldn't have had if I didn't have so many different jobs when I was younger. But
So true.
this is very clearly, this is the first career choice I've ever made.
You've made,
We
yeah.
had, before we'd got into what we're doing now, Alex and I were, again, how do we actually change what we're doing? We see developers doing what they're doing. We see people flipping property. How do they pay for it?
Yep.
And we just had to educate ourselves.
Yep.
And that started doing every course we could. We had all the Saturdays in all the
big
hotels and
ballrooms
casinos
everywhere.
and
Yeah.
ballrooms,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
listening and
The
learning.
big
and
sales coming at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
listening to
How
every
many
line.
cows are they going to take this
Yeah,
time?
yeah.
Mate, we've gone through all of that.
Love it. I love it.
We've been standing outside of ballrooms with people all but putting their hand in our pocket to take our money. And there were some very aggressive people.
Yeah.
And none of it seemed to fit. And then we had an opportunity to start working with some guys from Melbourne. And we ended up owning that company when that went where it was, which is a buyer's agency, which is where we met you. And we've been so fortunate with that kind of education traineeship, which is
to expose
how we
you to the
describe,
whole
to
world
expose
of
it to
property,
that world
eh?
of how property can work if you actually take action and do what needs to be done to move forward. And we're now in a very different position we were 5 years ago, and very grateful for the guys for taking us on board.
It's insane. Yeah, so it's kind of like you just battle it like in Wagga doing chippy and just doing your thing.
Anything and everything.
Yeah,
mate. I was
yeah.
a plumber, drove trucks, drove excavators.
Wow.
Worked for high voltage
love
power
that.
companies.
Yeah.
When I moved up here, I was sweeping floors for a builder.
Wow.
I was never afraid of doing the work.
Yeah.
That was okay. The work was never a problem.
I love that because we've interviewed a lot of people like yourselves on the property journey, some just starting, some, high-end developers on the back end, and all of them had a similar starting point. It was like, at least one of them had some sort of labouring or trade, just kind of just learning how to, put a nail in a wall or something like that. But everyone had a career where it wasn't like, I didn't want to stay in that forever. It was just kind of evolved with the property. What about yourself, Alex? What was your kind of from school onwards?
So certainly not uni or anything like that. I spent a lot of time in high-end hotel management, five-star airlines.
Getcha.
Yeah, my family has had retail stores since before I was born, so I've been in that as well, but more the business side of it. So definitely in the store, but always more interested in the business side, generating more business, more profit. How do we make it better? Creating new stores. But I suppose where Toby and I come together in all of that is that people often say to us how much we complement each other, or how they'll actually more go down the path of how do you work together.
Yeah.
And we always say it's like we actually really complement each other because of those different industries that we've worked in. And someone might say, well, how does a high-end airline or high-end hotel help you in property? Well, I think it's the attention to detail. It's the business management and things like that. So whilst Toby will be on site, looking after the boys, I'm in the background doing all the numbers, all the accounting, looking at our business model. We spend a lot of time talking about our business model.
Yeah.
And I think for first timers coming through, they may not think there's a business model behind being a renovator or a developer.
Yes.
But what we've sort of learnt over time that we do have a brand and we do have a business. It's not just, and particularly now, we're not just going project to project.
Yeah.
There actually is there's
Structure.
which we'll unpack. There's a 12 to 18 month plan out of this right now. you know.
100%.
Yeah.
Planning's huge. Is knowing and goal setting and planning more so than just literally getting your diary out and writing in today I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. We've got and we've structured our settlements to suit our next 12 and 18 months because we did start with having to put 100% in. We've put everything on the line more than once and been in precarious positions because we're both feet in. We burnt the boats. Yeah. And we've got no problem with that.
Yeah.
But now that we are in a position where our business model is there's more people to it. We've bought properties for $200,000 and now we're successful bidders on a property for 2.3 the other day. Massive disparity, and that's just the land value.
Yeah.
And we know what we're going to do with it, but that comes with a plan. That doesn't come with, I think I
Just
can do
winging
that.
it.
We've just winged it. We've done that. Don't worry. But the learnings came hard sometimes when we just winged it.
I love that.
Yeah.
We've had to change.
I was going to say, what would be, because I reckon there's two individual kind of sets, right? Like there's people who want to get into this space and they are winging it. Like there's kind of no place to start. What would your advice be to those people first, the ones who kind of, they see people like yourselves and they see some other people we've interviewed and they're like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Mate,
but it's kind of like,
I got a good woman. I get to ride Alex's coattails on that point.
What do you think of?
Oh, look, Matt, I think there's so much, and something else we can talk about. We created a whole course about this, right? So that people don't have to go through just the guesstimates essentially. And I often find even when you're talking to an agent, they'll be like, "Yeah, you can go for a $6 million sale," and we'll be like, "Our comps are sitting back at 4.5. Like, are we really throwing everything we've created on the line?" So, for me. Yeah, sure. It's education. It's surrounding yourself in the right people and all of those things. But for me, it's looking at, well, what are you actually trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people get, I want to renovate because I love what 3 birds do. Great work they do, and things like that. But it's like, why? I really want to pull it back to not so much spiritually, but like, why do you want to do that? Because I think if you can really pinpoint what your strategy is, you'll then start to be able to determine some time frames, which then brings you back to the how. And the how for me is like in our world, cash flow is king because you're often not getting paid for like 6 to 12 months at a time.
Yeah.
So how are you actually going to do this? How are you going to pay for the renovation or the development? And how are you going to pay for your lifestyle and your family in the meantime?
What are you willing to sacrifice to?
That's right.
We've sacrificed a lot.
Yeah.
And,
100%.
I worked personally. I worked for 12 months for free with these guys. I worked on Saturdays for them for nothing. Then all of a sudden I took Friday off and I worked with them again for nothing. Then it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I didn't get a cent. But I got an education, and I am now able to take that and do X. And I'm not too proud to say that we learned on Alex's wage at that time because
I was working for them for free as well.
We had a plan. And,
I love it.
our sacrifice came then, and we're now reaping the rewards now. But you've got to do something different.
Yeah.
And if you're going to work your 9 to 5 and then do an hour a night, that might get you somewhere.
Yeah.
But we personally went heavy. We went in. We went, no, we're committed to this. And I love the saying, "Burn the boats," because we did. There was no other option.
There was no other option.
We need to make this work for us.
Yeah.
But even with Laguna House, like we moved into that with basically a newborn. Everyone looked at us, like all our neighbours and everything. They're like, we were living in the one, like the studio shed on the side with a newborn. And still now, everyone say, how the hell? And I wouldn't do it now with 2 children, but we've also got the financial means to not have to do it. Could I do it again? Yeah, I could do it again because I saw what it allowed us to do in that property. It allowed us to live out a dream as well. And, ultimately achieve a record price on that place because we weren't paying $1,000 rent elsewhere and we were on site and we were just dedicated to that. And that's not for everyone, just to throw in the towel. We weren't throwing the towel, but we sold out of our business and decided we were going all in on that. And that was the property that changed everything. So we were prepared to sacrifice. We didn't go on holidays. We didn't eat out. We weren't at the pavilion every Saturday night and getting a nanny.
We had our first holiday together as a family this year. In 9 years.
Wow. Yeah,
we went overseas for 3 weeks and we said, you know what, we haven't done this in 8 years. We're in together.
Wow. I just love that. I love not only key things I took out of that was delayed gratification is number one, which is obviously a key thing I see a lot of people in this space because property isn't a get rich quick, it's a get rich slow though. It's a get and stay. And it's crazy. I love how you said as well, have the end in mind. I think that's a really good key takeaway for anyone who wants to get in is like, why? Like it's all well and good. You see the block and you're thinking that's cool, but like there's so much risk and there's so much due diligence that has to go into it. And I think the biggest one as well, not only understanding why, but I think the sacrifice. Like some people, I say this a lot in different things in life, is like you got to look up what is the cost of success too. And sometimes it's sacrifice and sometimes it's not. Some people don't want to actually pay the price and that's totally cool.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think understanding what it actually might cost to achieve what you want.
Some people don't have to pay the price. Some
Yeah.
people can transition from one job to another and keep growing. And good luck to them. That wasn't us, and that wasn't how I had to do it. So, from my own personal experience, I'm glad I did, but
Yeah.
I wish it didn't have to be that way sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, we
but
didn't
it
feel
is what
like
it
we
is.
had to sacrifice. In those moments, though, we didn't feel like we were sacrificing. We actually felt like we were living our goal. So,
Yeah.
you know, in hindsight,
Yeah.
like we roughed it, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But
But you're kind of living the life that you kind of planned anyway, yeah.
I remember a stage at Laguna House because we did it in 3 different stages. And I
Yeah.
remember sitting at the kitchen bench with Toby, and we needed to access funding for the next stage. And yeah, we had we'd run it dry sort of
Yeah.
thing. And, you know, and that's from our family. Like now we structure things differently. We've got lifestyle money and our
Yeah.
money and then funding, you know, but everything's grown obviously and we've grown. But back then it was sort of like we were dipping into all the ponds, you know
Just
what I mean?
to
It was
get
like
to the next stage.
that's
Yeah,
right.
I love
and
that.
you know, I look back on that so fondly because whilst it was stressful and we made some very uncomfortable calls to people we didn't want to, and this is how our whole investor network started.
Yeah.
But you look back on that and you go, like that's kind of literally life-changing stuff. That's
Yeah.
stuff that you grow from.
Yeah.
You know, and they're the sacrifices, I think, when you're looking at your bank account and it's very, very low and you've got a child as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Toby,
Far out, yeah.
yeah, so we had a newborn there and Toby's boy lives in New South Wales. So
Yeah.
a commitment to travelling to him. So we knew that there were expenses there that it's not like he and I can just go to a caravan park, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes it got this close.
Yeah,
Luckily we're
yeah.
nowhere near that now.
Yeah.
But, you know, so these are the things. So you're right. People don't have to. They may not have the ticker for it and that's okay. But if you're not deciding early on that like you're okay with what might be thrown
What
at
could
you.
happen, yeah.
Yeah, and that's from a lifestyle, that's from sacrifice financially, but that's also the stresses of a project.
Yeah.
Because like we're not exempt from those. Just because we've got a few under our belt and a few great results doesn't mean we're exempt from the crap.
No, nothing's still.
You know?
You still got to build the things. You've got to do the job, and you still got to worry about the issues on site.
Yeah.
Just because we did it that way doesn't mean everyone has to either.
No, that's
there's,
right.
There's a lot of other people that can do it differently, but that worked for us.
That
Yeah.
worked for you guys.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, and so there might be people that listen to this and go, "Oh, I breezed through the first one," and like to us, we kind of feel like we did. But at the same time, when you look at your own story, there's a lot of things that you go, "Wow, remember that?
Yeah,
remember when
isn't
that
that
got
crazy?
real tough?"
Yeah. What would be if you put yourself back in those moments where it is like, all right, next stage and like scraping at the barrel with a baby as well,
Yeah.
like what was it that got you through those times? Because I've seen it on the other side too, where unfortunately, you know, some people do have to sell and fire sale to recoup funds and stuff. Like
Yeah.
what was it just the why? Like what were some things that you were getting you through those kind of tough times?
Unshakable belief. Like
Yeah.
Laguna House, we had unshakable belief, and that's like such a cringy type word. But we got, when we first started, we sat around our kitchen table with a number of agents, and the most they were giving us on paper was about 1.8, 1.9,
Yeah.
and we sold for 2.22 at
Yeah.
auction.
In the same breath, we had local buyers agents who, and that's our background. People might not know that we are buyers agents, and we've used your services because we needed the professional in that space.
Yeah.
And our project that's coming to completion now is a project that you bought us. But in that space at that time, every single person, from a buyer's agent to a real estate agent to neighbours to everyone, you're not going to get that. You're dreaming, you're dreaming. And we broke the record. It wasn't on Jefferson Lane though, mind you.
Yeah.
No, but we had
By 300
duplex.
grand.
We had the duplex
It was a
record. At the
record,
time.
yeah.
Well,
It
it's still,
was a phenomenal price. I remember when I was like so stoked for you guys because it bucked a huge trend as well. And I think it really focused, and this is what I loved about it too, was that you obviously location's a big one, but
Yeah.
I think the detail, knowing you guys personally, the attention to detail and every little thing, and kind of, you know, some people call it, oh, that's you're perfectionists and things like that. But I remember when I was chatting to you guys and it was meticulous. And
Yeah.
I was like, it was half done, but I was like, this is different and you can feel it, right? And buyers will pay that bit more for quality, right?
Absolutely.
Well, coming back to the whole like hotel management and all of that, that's sort of what I mean about the attention to detail, those 1%ers that would make a customer back then or a client or a guest, as they call them, you know, complain. Or so for us, you take that
100%.
through to the property industry, and when you're going to a sale, we look at everything now as to how do we remove a buyer objection.
Love
we went
it.
to an open home this week, or an inspection off market, and Toby was quite keen on it. And as I got in the car, I was like, I'm not keen on it, but I just feel like there's a number of buyer objections we can't remove from that place.
Yeah. Love it.
The next day, went to a different one, and I was like, this one has wiped out all of those buyer objections that I was worried about with the other one.
Yeah.
And that might not be quite like as significant as that, but even when we're in a development, I'll be like, I just think that flow isn't right. Or, I'll say to Toby, what do you reckon the objection here is going to be?
Yeah.
Like
Love
Laguna
it.
House, we did a lot of, because we had London and she was a baby and she was crawling, we had a lot of like making sure all the levels were the same. So you wouldn't actually step
point.
out of your house.
Love that.
Like, so she would never fall. Yeah, so there was stuff like that, and you can't achieve that a lot now with all these flood height guidelines. But there's things like that. I'm like, so if someone has a young family or someone has a dog, like we've had a lot of feedback.
Good point.
We've had a lot of feedback, for example, about real grass if people have dogs.
Yep.
Like just things like this that
Love
moving
that.
forward, you go, on the last one, there were 5 things that were brought to our attention that buyers are looking for.
Storage.
Let's not storage, like for motorbikes and...
Yep.
Yeah, so things like project to project, moving forward and just removing that, but so that you don't go into a sales campaign, and you're never going to appeal to all buyers.
Yes.
But if you can remove
limit.
like that one thing that they're like, that's just my bugbear.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I love that. Want to unpack that? What would be the 3 biggest buyer objections that you try to avoid for your Gold Coast developments?
Aspect, the way the house is facing will have a big bearing. Oh, that's probably not what you storage is a big one. Storage is huge.
Huge, yeah.
We've had 2, well, Laguna and 19th. They have both buyer groups have said, "Hey, this is amazing, but where's my jet ski going? Where's my caravan going? What are we doing there?" You can't account for all of it, but a dedicated storage room is huge.
Yeah.
We believe that we give people most things like big bedrooms and bathrooms and kitchen. All that
Sounds
sort of
simple,
stuff,
eh?
big
But
areas.
you'd be surprised how big
Mate,
of a buyer
do you know
objection
what?
that is.
A really unusual one is fly screens. That pops up a lot. I mean,
Interesting.
We've got the big, beautiful doors, and people go, "Cool, how can I shut the flies out?" And like,
Interesting.
let the world in.
So now
yeah.
it's looking at, not that we will like cater to it in terms of like putting them in and reducing the style of our home, but we'll look at it and say, so if someone wanted to, Laguna House had those beautiful big doors that pinned open. They didn't have the ability to, and there was actually a buyer who passed on it because of that.
Yeah.
But I spent a couple of years in America, and Toby's now been over with me, and one of the things that we carry through is size. So the American size.
Yeah.
So where it generally on a plan might be, a metre wide walkways, we try and make them 1,200. We high ceilings are for everyone, but we've always done 2340 doors, for example, even, before we actually consciously made this decision to make everything big. My thing about Laguna House was I want it to have like that New Yorky kind of loft feel, townhouse feel. It was quite unique in its style anyway because of what, like the original home. But just making things big. Like, just oversized, weren't they?
Maximising whatever we can.
Maximize, yeah.
Sorry.
No, so I was going to say, so it sounds like you really dive into space and feel.
As best we can.
Yeah.
And flow
and
things like, so if mum and dad are sitting there, like, do they really want, like, the baby's room to be right next door? Or do they, like, we really think about, like, so if mum was sitting there reading the paper with a coffee and dad was having a beer out there or whatever it might be, how does everyone feel? So a big thing with Element, in Eleonora, was really about energy. Like that was a big lifestyle home, and it was like, so a family buys this, what's the energy in their home? Because it's like they've got a pool, they've got a basketball court, they've got an outdoor, like they've got a bar around their pool, they've got like the room they can put the races or the footy or whatever on. It was very much like fishing rods and jet skis. And
Mum can see the kids from everywhere. That's also probably something that we're pretty conscious on putting in there. Is
that's a huge one. Hey,
ability for mum to be in kitchen, or mum and dad, excuse me. Kids to be able to be visual if they're in the pool from most of the house. That's a big one.
That's actually a huge one. Hey, I agree.
But when you're sort of mentioning that, we've done that. We got that from Laguna. We put that in Element. We've made sure that every one of our properties now has bigger windows towards that area of the house. At the very least, good access, so it's not a long run.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that.
Happen.
Yeah, so it's very much about how it will actually be used by the end user. Yes, we've lived in a Laguna House. We're going to live in this one that we're doing now just for a short period of time. So we're selling early next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not so much about what we want. It's about what that end buyer is going to want and the feeling, because we sort of then sell that to our agent as well.
Yeah.
So whoever our chosen agent is, we're talking about why we design things a certain way, and
How that message has to get relayed across to the eventual buyer, doesn't it? Yeah.
And we're listening.
That's such a good
We're
point.
we're sponges. We will listen to,
Yeah.
like if you come and said, hey, just want to let you know, we've heard 10 times
Yeah.
this is something, how do we implement that? How do we, we're not here to, we're definitely not too arrogant to say we know it all, because we don't. And we would love anybody to come with us with the right advice, because we do listen and implement, and agents are our biggest key source because they're on the ground.
100%.
If they're telling us storage is huge, then, well, pay attention, because if we don't implement, we'll get left behind.
Yeah.
actually the one we're doing right now was originally going to be quite a dark home.
Yep.
It was going to have a lot of black features and a few things. The energy efficiency reporting now makes it very, very hard. But the other thing was a little bit of feedback about a couple of properties that were on the market recently, and just the difference in attention they were getting, and offers and things like that. And, you know, so again, it's not about us. It's what does that end buyer want in this market? They still want light and bright and Gold Coasty, and maybe not so much the coastal home. I think things are they're moving away from that a little bit. I think the Palm Springs thing's suddenly going out and it's becoming a bit more Spanish and things like that. But definitely listening. Like, so, you know, would our house have been white? Would this house have been white? Probably not. And it's white again.
Yeah.
So it's listening.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So big takeaway there is really understanding what the end buyer of that certain market kind of wants, and the way to get that is leaning on people on the ground, agents, buyers agents, current buyers as well. You might have networks, things like that. And then I think a big one as well, what you said is I really liked it around, all right, you've got your end buyer, how will they use this home? Because you're so right, like people pay for experiences, lifestyle, emotions, feelings. They pay off those things, off the green brain. The red brain looks at the numbers and the kind of site, but at the end of the day, if they're not feeling it green brain, they're not paying that extra money.
Common comment is the female buys the house, the male pays for it.
Yeah.
Because she's feeling it.
How do they? I was going to say, how do they make decisions? Yeah, exactly
because,
right.
In that situation, she's going, I'm likely going to be here with my kids, and I'm likely going to be the one looking after this home.
Love that.
If this is going to be difficult, why would I put myself through
Yeah.
that? And you know, we do try to appeal to emotion as much as we can, and we do try to make sure that our kids can enjoy it as well, because we assume that if our kids can, someone else's will.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll sit back and say, okay, so if, you know, friends of ours who've got older kids, for example, if they were to live in this home, here's how they would enjoy it. You know, us with younger children, okay, here's how it may or may not work for us. And again, you're not going to appeal to everyone, but like if you take Element in Eleanor as an example, like that was just perfect for, like, our own buyer has a couple of, like, I think their kids are 7 and 9.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, they have got the best years of their life coming up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We had one of your clients
come
through with his kids.
Yeah.
And the best news for us was that the kids walked out there and went, oh, Dad, look at this. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And Dad's going, shut up. Don't say that.
Don't tell them we like it.
And look, there's a basketball court. No, Dad. And
Yeah,
that's
I
what we
love it.
want. We want to give that to people, not just for our sales day, but we also want to give them a product that they can enjoy.
They enjoy
we
too,
don't want to be known.
I love that.
If we do have any kind of reputation, we'd like it to be that we deliver what people would like.
Yeah, I love that.
The other thing we also try to do, Matt, is make it so that if someone misses out at our auction, they're not going to an auction the next week and finding the same product.
Same thing, yeah.
So we want to be like, no one was buying Laguna House and then going to an auction a week later to buy the same house, and they still won't.
Because it wasn't out there,
it's not there.
I love that.
And Element was much the same, you know, 1,200 square metres north facing on Tallabudger Creek. I mean, there's homes like Element out there, but I just think everything that it provided, I think for that family, definitely, they were like, she was like, I want this, you know?
I love that.
I'm sure that happens at all the auctions, but again, just so that they're not going down the road and go, oh, I missed that one, I'll just get the one next week.
Yeah. So it's kind of two parts, right? It's looking at that end buyer, but then also how can you make your product that little bit, you don't want to just be in a saturated, same floor plan, same style as every other home in that market too.
And that is not easy, because it's tough to redesign a home.
Yeah.
Because there are so many
Yeah.
that someone's probably done it
Yeah.
somewhere.
And it's a balance too, because then there's the other side of the spectrum where I've seen some go too far of the away from the masses, where it's so unique that it's just like, this is cool, but it's not functional, or it's
I
like
know, you've
that's a
got to
bit
toe
too
that
crazy.
line,
Yeah,
and it can be tough. And there's lots of things we'll be out, like, picking fittings or whatever, and
Love
I'll
it.
go, yes, if it was our house, 100%, and we'll be like,
Yeah.
I love it, absolutely love
Very
it, but it's
common.
not for us.
very
Yeah,
common for us,
getcha.
isn't it?
So we walk away from a lot of stuff, don't we? That
Yeah.
we're like,
100%.
oh, one day on our Jefferson Lane beachfront home.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
What about just quickly on so Laguna House, that you got a suburb record for that one, and anyone who doesn't know, check it out. But on Our Unfiltered Reno, but the thing with that one, it was a duplex, right? I'm curious to know, this might add value to someone out there where they might not have the budget for a freestanding just yet on the Gold Coast. You guys still achieved what I believe, a great price for it was a duplex, right?
Yeah.
What was your mindset on tapping into working with what you had there? Like, it's a duplex, right? Like, what did you look at it? Did you sort of say, all right, yeah, like any insight on that? If someone didn't have budget for a freestand but still wants to do what you guys are doing?
Mate, that's exactly the position we were in at that time.
Yeah.
We had we were looking at one on Cypress
Yeah.
in Palm Beach, and it had approval for an extension, and we thought, Christ, good, we can do that. And then we saw this one, and we're like, wow, we can do this here. The block was an unusual shape, so we thought we can potentially work with that. And from the get-go, we knew that was the one that we needed to buy.
Yep.
But we couldn't afford to buy a home at that point. We didn't have the capacity to do that. So that was our world. We were in apartments, duplexes, villas.
Yeah.
Where can we potentially get the best value that we can? And Dave Loney was amazing as an agent, and he got the deal done for us with his clients, and that was a property because that's what we could do.
But we also, looking at the whole value add aspect. So even as buyers agents, our whole business philosophy was about adding value. So, we were actually doing renovations for clients back then. So we were often buying the worst house in the best street and things like that. So we always look at how we can add value to it. And I think initially when we bought it, we probably thought we were renovating what was there. As we sold out of our buyer's agency and decided to go all in on just renovating or developing ourselves, we actually decided, okay, how can we make this a couple of stage project and really maximize the land? So we demolished the garage part that we had originally lived in.
Cut the whole half off, didn't we?
We had definitely had council relaxations. So, we pushed the boundaries quite literally, so maximising the land, and still to this day, people say, I don't know how you got all that house on that block. So, I think we just backed ourselves on that one, and we broke it down into 3 stages as well. Sorry.
No,
we broke it down into 3 stages. So from a funding perspective, we actually got it to a level that a valuer came in, we refinanced it. We actually even landscaped it to a level that the valuer came in and thought that was the finished product.
Yep. So you could,
And then released it to do the extension.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot in that. From a strategy perspective, there was a lot in that, because it wasn't just let's go do this work, we'll pay for it. It was, how do we get this to a level where we can then do the whole lot of work? What do we need to do? And that came with rolling the dice, making sure that we spent the money right. And that was probably a very important one, is that we did the kitchens, we did a massive bathroom upstairs, 2 bedrooms, and we had a third that was existing. So we did the 3-bed, 2-bath. That was our ceiling as to what we could do.
At that stage.
But we need to make sure that valuer thought that was the best 3-bed,
Getcha.
2-bath that we could get. And then we just cut half the house off and built another 3 bedrooms and
that's unreal.
2 bathrooms.
Yeah.
It really even sounds like what I took out of that was like any good business, right? Like prioritizing the one thing at a time. So it sounds like, because the funds, you were just literally getting buyers, like you didn't have, you couldn't risk not getting it right. So it was like you worked backwards, kind of, this is the funds, these are the rooms we have to do first. So on that, if you were giving tips, what would be the prioritization, maybe your top 3 areas, rooms to maximise value? If you had only X amount of bickies left, what would you do?
Kitchen, bathrooms,
100%.
yeah,
Yep.
100%. So we spent a lot of money on the kitchen. We didn't do the butlers;
tip.
it was part of the extension.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very strategic, that house, and yeah, very happy to share that to anyone who might want to unpack that, because it was very, very strategic to how we achieved all those multiple funding levels.
Yep.
But the kitchen definitely, it was the first investment we made. Then we made a pretty epic main bathroom upstairs. Then and the pool.
Yeah,
So
like kind
the
of
pool was one of the
alfresco
first
kinda,
things we put in. So I was just
You
trying to
did
think.
well with that little section there with the little. You had like a little seated window thing too.
Yeah.
Yes, the
Yep,
bench
yep.
seat.
Yeah.
Floating
Yeah.
seat.
Didn't see that in any duplexes. So again, being that little bit different.
And the area at the back with the fake grass, and
Yeah.
it gave us about another 50 square meters. That
Yeah.
when we bought it, that was like you just
It's just
didn't even
nothing.
think it was there. Yeah.
No, but
Interesting.
the functionality of that home was amazing. We were very lucky with that. Part of it was fortunate we didn't have a great deal of control over, and
Yeah.
that was we can only play within the council
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And
So true.
very fortunate for us that the next door neighbour was able to build on their boundary.
Yep.
So we said, well, sir, there's precedence. Can we please do the same? And
Yep.
I said, to this degree you can.
Yeah.
The tips for the guys though, like we don't know it all. We've got an amazing education behind us. We've written down what we do know, and we've been able to put that in a course. If we had that course, that's what my tip would be. Is if don't
Try
worry
and get
about the
educated.
money. Like
Yeah.
the money is. I know that sounds so hard not to do, but focusing on the money was probably not our success. We focused on our education.
Yeah.
And we learnt property, and we learnt how to put deals together, and we learnt how to structure deals.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we learnt how the right people to talk to for finance.
Yeah.
Like from our perspective, and I'm sure you can agree with this, is in the BA space, we didn't realise that there's no support in Australia for someone to purchase a property. So why wouldn't you have a buyer's agent? You've been given you're giving an uneducated person all the money they've asked for, and it might not be the best bet if they don't know. So get professional help, which we were lucky enough to do. And even as buyer's agents, we used a buyer's agent because we're able to listen to learning. And that's where I think,
Your learners and growers.
yeah,
big
I
time,
think
mate,
that's
yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is it's we can talk about an actual room or
Yeah.
the property or how we can do anything. I believe that is so far down the track
Yeah.
to understanding the actual the whys,
Yeah.
the reason we
Yeah.
want to do something.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too philosophical, but
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest
Yeah.
thing is learn first and then
Yeah.
second.
Yeah, but as I said before, it's not about the spiritual side of it. I'm not talking about the why as in like your spirituality side. I'm more talking about the why as to like what is
Yes,
that
what
end
is it?
goal?
Yeah.
And it may not even be like a monetary figure, but we as buyers agents, a lot of people were saying, I want to replace my income. They had no idea what that looked like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How
You probably
much
get
and
that a
why
lot.
and yeah.
And
100%.
how? And
Yeah,
they
yeah,
think
yeah,
that
yeah.
buying like
Yeah,
one
yeah.
property is going to set them up
Yeah,
for life.
have
or,
passive income and yeah.
yeah. So
True.
I think it's starting back with like what your skill set is and connecting with people. Like we're
Love
so
that.
lucky that we
Love that,
complement
yeah.
each other, and
Yeah.
he's a jack of all trades and now a builder as well. So, so fortunate in that regard, but we like look at each other now and go, well, we're actually fundraisers and we structure deals.
Love it.
It's great that he's a builder and it's great that we can both do some designing and stuff like that, and I can stage a house and all the rest of it. Property is the vehicle. Property is the vehicle. I love it, but I've really come to this place where I'm like, are people just doing renovations because they want to be on the block or three birds or is it actually the vehicle? And I've really come to realise
Love
that
that.
as much as I love property and I love design, I love like living in a great home, really, at the end of the day, don't care less.
It's the
It's
vehicle.
a vehicle.
Yep.
It's the vehicle to the freedom, the experiences, being able to travel with my
Yeah.
family, like
Yeah.
all those things, the freedom and flow and ease that comes with generating good money
Yes. Yeah.
and not being locked in a 9 to 5 that I hate.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think-
I love that.
Yeah, so I think to wind that right back, it's like, what are my skills? What am I trying to achieve? Who do I need to connect with to bring these to fruition? Because a lot of people would go into this not having a partner or
Yep.
he's an accountant or a
Yep.
lawyer or a
Yep.
doctor or, you know what I mean? And a lot of people go in having the money but don't know what to do. So it's like, who do I need? Who do I need in my corner? Yeah.
That's unreal. That's so good. I think like I always say with property, it's a business, right? At the end of the day, and I heard it somewhere. And you've pretty much nailed it, I reckon. Like unpacking it, just like when people say like my business is my baby or something like that. It's like your baby's your family.
Yeah,
That's at
yes.
home.
Yeah.
Your
Yes,
business is a
yes,
vehicle,
yes.
really. You've solved a pain point in whatever market that is, and
Absolutely
it's a vehicle to generate whatever that why is. And some people, you're right. Some people are in business because they're just in business, but like
They're in a
the
job.
why. Yeah.
That's the hard part. Is we've one of the things that Alex sort of mentions in the course a lot is talking about the B word, and everyone assumes it's budget, but we treat your renovation as it is a business.
Business,
because it
100%.
is an income generating
Definitely.
activity that we were fortunate enough to replace our whole.
Yeah.
Everything we do now is just around how do we create something for our family, and it's as simple as if I do X to get Y, does that give me Z?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And how do we work out how do we do X?
Yeah. And I love what you said around team too, like any business, you got to be able to delegate.
Absolutely.
You got to let go to grow, right? If you try to do the whole renovation yourself, you'd be,
That's where
you could
stress
probably do
comes
one
from.
a
It
year,
goes
you
a
know, but
long way.
Yeah.
where you guys are kind of doing multiple at a time, you wouldn't be able to do that on your own, right? You've got
It's
so many
really
people in your corner.
Yeah, it's so funny that as things really level up or we rise up, whatever you want to say, over the past probably 6 months, since we settled on the one that we're constructing now, which was in Feb, longest settlement in history back.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've still got scars
Yeah.
from that negotiation.
Since we settled on that, you know, what we've been able to secure with a strategy in mind, it's like looking at what do we want to achieve, but then how do we make sure that we're not in that position that we're, I don't say this negatively, but as they say, the mum and dad investor or the mum and dad renovator, where they're like doing one, stopping, letting the property grow probably a little bit, then selling, and then like, oh, will I look at buying and do it again? This is our business. We're not in that field anymore. Like this is actually what pays for our kids to go to school and stuff.
Yeah, you're doing it full
So
time.
the way that we're doing it now is, all right, so we're staggering it. Like we're under construction
Very
now.
deliberately.
We have 2 settling and starting construction in November. We've got another one starting construction in July next year, like settling in July.
We're in negotiations for another one
To start in
as we
Easter.
speak.
Yeah.
As we speak.
Yeah.
So we're sort of looking at, well, all going
It's like
to
your pipeline of,
100%, because you look at the other end, so that's great
Yeah,
for starting,
100%.
but you look at the completion dates and
Yes.
the resale dates, and they're strategic as well. You know, we
definitely.
negotiate, even though they say you can't negotiate your terms for auction, we've negotiated all of our terms to make sure that, all right, so if we
aligned with your
settle
goals,
in
yeah.
November,
Yeah.
we'll be selling next summer,
Yeah.
we'll be selling next spring.
Yeah,
you know? So,
love that.
And with that, the monetary
Yeah.
projection
yeah.
to how we're
100%.
like funding our next 18 months
Yeah.
sort of thing.
That's awesome. It just, I guess what you've just highlighted there, lifting the hood on like, that's a business, like that's strategic planning on like a P&L essentially,
Yeah.
right? So
Absolutely.
just like any successful business, if you don't know your plans and numbers and things like that. So that's awesome. It just kind of lifts the hood on like, this isn't just the kind of, let's buy this and
No.
renovate,
No,
let's see what
crikey.
it sells for. There's so much
Yeah.
planning that goes into it. I'm actually keen, just as we wrap up, but there's one thing I really want to dive into is kind of the funding and JVs, kind of this, how you're setting up the structure and whatnot. Because again, this is, I always use the analogy, there's different rooms, right? You buy, I remember when I bought my first house, I was just learning on what a broker is. And you're in that room,
Yeah,
and then you
yeah.
open the next room and people are talking around equity.
Yep.
And you're learning about that.
Yeah.
You guys are playing in a room now where things like JVs and learning how to structure certain, there's a lot of crossing T, dotting the I's, and getting funding and things like that. So what would be your biggest, I guess, maybe lessons, if there was maybe 2 or 3 just lessons around finance? Because to do what you do now, it's a game of finance, I believe.
100%.
Big
Yeah.
time.
It is
So
100% that.
how can you keep the tap going? What's your biggest learnings in the finance piece?
All of this came from us through the buyers agency that we're working with. Is we and the weekend education we gave ourselves was we went to the Get Rich Quick
Yeah.
scheme
Yeah.
courses,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all that sort of stuff, and realised that it was all smoke and mirrors. It's just partnership. It's coming to someone like yourself and saying, "Hey, Matt, I know that I can do this. Do you think that you'd be interested in doing this with me?" And if someone says, "Mate, no, I don't," then cool. Unfortunately, that was a no. But next person, next conversation, Who do you know? Who can you speak to? Have you got a brother? Have you got a friend? Have you got ex-football players? Have you got anyone in your network? Do you believe that they want to do better in their life? Have an uncomfortable conversation. I'm happy to. I love it. I'll put myself out there with anyone. I will talk. I will very willingly, excuse me, go up to anyone and say, hey, this is what I do for a living. Do you want to get involved? What's your thought? What do you want to do with your life? And someone will say, oh, God, I wish I could. I can't do it. I can.
Yeah.
Let me.
Yeah.
I'll show you. Let me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It
every deal is so different. So we're at the stage now that we don't go to a property and go, oh, we've just secured two, like we're out, we're done. We walk, like we went to one yesterday that we're looking to secure today. And the day before that, I probably wasn't on the hunt.
Yeah.
And now we walked away from that and just looked at each other and we're like, okay, how do we do this? Not we can't, it's how do we do it?
How do we make it work? Yeah.
Yeah, and we're in a position now that people are knocking at our door to partner.
Yeah.
And that was a goal that we had a little while back where
You were the first person that mentioned that to us about 3 years ago. You said, I see that. You'll get to a point where someone's going to be starting to talk to you, and we're at that place now, which is very
That's
fortunate
unreal.
for us.
Yeah, and that comes with the experiences and I suppose the runs on the board that people can see
definitely.
we can do what we do.
Social proof.
Yeah, that's right. So that's something we're really proud of. But for those getting started, I think that we talk about power base a lot. So the people in your network, not just like your inner network, but like your brother's friend or your brother's boss or whatever it might be, people that you know, expand out a little bit further. And as Toby said, be prepared to have some uncomfortable conversations because you also may not have the runs on the board. So you need to be a little bit vulnerable. But I think this is where you lean into your strengths, put together a business plan, be professional and be like, here's what I want to achieve. Here's where I see that I can add value. Here's where I see someone like yourself could add value. Here's
The more professionalism and the more facts and figures and coming with something real, I believe the more success you'll have. Like if I come up and said, hey, Matty, let's go do some houses, you go, how, what, where, when.
Yeah.
And if you can detail that and say, no, actually see this, if I do that to that, you can see
It could
there's
equate
10
to
people.
this and
So we've been doing like official investor proposals since day dot, and they've grown and things like that. But even like Toby's the relationship person in our partnership.
Yeah.
He's always out talking to people, and even if it's a mate of his or ours or something, he'll still say, Alex will send you all the details because we want them to have the full kit.
Yeah.
We don't want it to ever just be like, just trust us,
Just
we'll make it work.
handshake it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is probably the biggest one is don't handshake it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get your legal advice.
Love it.
Speak to your brokers.
100%.
The broker's so important.
Yeah.
If you
Finance
walk
structure
into
side,
one of the big four and say, hey, and they say no, that's not the end of the road.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
Speaking to your broker and saying, this is what I want to do. And even your accountant's exceedingly important too. So
Massive,
when you talk about team's probably the biggest one, I'd say, because if you listen and you're willing to put yourself out there, I think you can go a long way.
So it sounds like kind of pooling funds has been a key part of your structure in layman's term for those who don't understand JVs and stuff like that. It's essentially pooling funds from people who want a better position but may not have the skill set, and being in a position where it's like, hey, let's create a 1 + 1 = 4 scenario. Is that probably the simplest way? Yeah. And it sounds like the key takeaway there is if you do that though, do it formally.
Yes.
Do it properly.
100%.
Absolutely formally.
100%.
We've heard the horror stories and that's when stuff goes pear-shaped. If people don't know exactly what's supposed to happen and expectations are not met because expectations aren't clearly outlined in the beginning.
Set expectations early.
We're very fortunate that we had the time with our former business partners because they made sure that we understood that when we started.
Unreal.
And we've taken that away now and implemented it.
Yeah.
Been really worked for us.
Yeah, and I think people probably originally looked at using investor funds as, they just can't afford it. And we actually met with one of who's now an investor, met with him at a cafe recently, and he asked around those, I suppose, that philosophy, like why, if you're so successful, why are you using investors? And it's allowing us to scale.
I was going to say,
That's at the end of the day, I don't not that we don't have our own money, and we absolutely do, but it's allowing us to, as I just said, possibly secure number 5 today or tomorrow. you know, so, and it's taking other people along on the journey as well. So there's education for them. Our network is part of a group, like a WhatsApp group. They get to see everything. They see where their money's being spent. And a lot of these people do their own developments. They invest in other projects, and they also come back to us and say, I have to end up calling that bloke and being like, what's going on at your site? They get to see behind the curtain, and they learn, and they're like excited about it. We're in the draw to win 50 grand for one of those smart kit things that we used at Eleonora, and the whole, like, all the investors are like behind us. They're, you know, because they're part of the journey.
Yeah, I love that.
So if someone has the means and they have the want to get into property, but they actually don't want to do the reno themselves and things like that, it's also for other people to feel fulfilled because they're part of a property journey without having to lift a tool.
I love it. I love it. And that, it's crazy. I remember when I was younger learning around JVs and partnerships, and it's kind of a bit of a, it seems simple now, right? For us sitting, we all know, but like for the novice, it's actually a really clever part. Like there's a lot of people there with access to equity funds, whatever. They want a better life, but they've got no idea where to start. They probably don't have the time to understand it. There is ways where you can like fractionally invest, the
most traditional way of saving your money, getting your 20% deposit and buying a property, I would nearly say is impossible for the average Joe to do today. If you can work a 9 to 5 and you can save for a house deposit, I take my hat off to you.
It's tough,
do
isn't
not
it?
understand how in the world that we live in today. So we had to think differently. And that came with thinking about,
I love it.
Oh, Matt does it. Let's go talk to him.
And
he goes, oh, if you try this, it might work. And we did, and it did.
I love that. It's kind of like getting resourceful, hey, like understanding there's other, the door's locked, to find the side window.
We don't take that
100%. 100%, because they're not all the same. There'll be a JV on this one, there'll be bank loan on that one, but using investor funds, and then there'll be us on title on another one, and they're all so different, aren't they?
That's so good. So really sounds like, I guess as we get close to wrapping up, some big things I took away is definitely that finance piece, because it seems like you wouldn't, no way you'd be able to do the amount you're doing volume-wise so quickly without understanding this partnerships, building network's your net worth, right? So that's one part. I think the attention to detail, like I didn't know that about your background in the hotel, makes complete sense, right? Like that's why it is a good combo. It's kind of that, kind of you got the trade, you got the attention to detail side of things. So it's a really good recipe of success for anyone out there listening, like that finance, the 1%ers. And I think the biggest one I took out of today was kind of that end goal, but why? I think so many people have this end goal, but like, why do you even want that? Because I'd say that's where you tapped into when you're scraping with the 1-year-old in the garage, kind of.
Absolutely.
That would have been tough time kind of thing. So you just make it.
Was what it was.
Just
though,
believe too. But I've known you guys for you always truly believe it, and I know that, and you can hear it in people's voices when they know what they want. And they know what they want to achieve.
The why is insane. If you want to do it for your kids, cool. Why do you want to do it for your kids? You want to give them a better life? Cool, that takes money. Then how do you make that money? Come back from that. The why is massive. Our kids are our why all day.
I love that. I love that.
We're a bit woo-woo. We trust in the universe, and you know, if we're putting that energy out to it, and as I said before, that unshakable belief. Like we don't go into a sale going, oh my God, I don't think it's as good as that one, and I don't think it's going to reach this price. We are going to our agent and going, we know it's that. We know that this is going to be a record. We know that.
I love it.
We've gone into all of those expecting the results, essentially.
It doesn't remove the nerves, and it doesn't remove the stress, and it doesn't remove everything, but it does give you the ability to know that factually it should be.
Yes, it should.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that.
Yeah.
Just lastly, before we finish on the last segment, but how do you balance it with, you said you got 2 kids and then you've got a like family of 5, like you got 4 projects on the run, potentially another one. You know, like is there any tips, habits? I don't know. Like what
team's huge. Like it is. We don't have to, like, I'm sure you know more than most. You've got your own staff and you've got businesses and your own ventures, then you need to time block your life. We have to do the same. We've got to work.
So you work off calendars kind of thing, or like?
Yeah, but I think it's gotten easier the more we do, because we now, you know, because it is a business and it's not just, we're just doing a reno.
we're very fortunate that we do it together too. Because
Yes.
we don't. Alex isn't going off to work in the morning and I'm doing that.
True.
We're doing it together, so we're in a place where our whole life is
Yep.
the same conversations. We're
Yep.
talking about what's going on tomorrow, the next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was tough in the beginning for time-wise because we had to just balance it all and flip it on its head, and just through learnings of how you do it. We've our kids haven't started school yet either, though,
Yeah.
We don't. No 2 days are the same. So yes, we have calendars for things we have locked in, but it's not like I'd be like, I'm on site at 10 a.m. tomorrow because the boys ring at 7:55. He's like 6:55. He's out. You know.
Yeah.
Most mornings he's like he'll go to site and then come home. We'll do school run stuff like that together. We always come back to let's not get so busy that we can't do the things that were the reason we wanted to do this in the first place.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, so like we still take our kids to school together and stuff like that, and we haven't thrown, Hardy goes a couple of days, but at this age, London was going like 4 or 5 days, and we sort of went, well, are we just throwing Hardy in so that we can be busier and go back to life that we hated? And we sold out of the buyer's agency because London was in school 5 days, and I felt like I was never seeing her.
Yeah,
she was
wow.
5
I
months
love
old,
that.
and always at school.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we just make it work. There's, probably pens down sort of 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and we try to make that it. But we've also learnt to just respect each other as well and that's been a journey, like to go, well, hang on, the kids are home, don't answer that call. Or, so now it's just finding a fluidity between, I understand that's important and it's for the greater good of what we're doing. Yeah.
And it sounds like you got the shared purpose as well, which is huge as a couple, right? Like
and an understanding,
An understanding, Yeah, and even off air, I heard you saying you got a little date session here and there.
Well,
and
that's the
so
stuff we do, mate.
Yeah, you have to, eh?
If you want to be a little bit healthier, then
great time,
Mate, the grog stop.
Yeah,
too,
good on you.
We don't drink anywhere near as much as we used to. And
it's an energy game, right?
It is an energy game.
100%.
Absolutely. But the dates, even that one thing has been massive for us, work and relationship wise.
But you're intentional, right? Like
absolutely.
I heard that when you're off air, you're like, on this day we do this, and then we might go out for cafe and
and we'll still talk business and everything. Like we don't really because as Toby said, that's where we've been dating like that since day dot. So nothing like that. It's not like we're not talking about property today. It's all very much about that.
We tried that. It was a very quiet day.
The juggle for everyone. It's not simple. It's not simple.
No different to everyone else's life. We just sort of chose to
just
do
having a crack. Just having a crack. And that's probably the biggest thing out of this, and hopefully it's added value. Like, again, knowing you from a few years back, like seeing the dream come to life. I'm telling you, that's why I wanted to share this story on buying Gold Coast Step 1, is because there's a lot of people who are in your shoes 3-4 years ago. And really, it feels like yesterday, right? And it's just crazy what can be achieved if you take some of the nuggets out of today and apply it. So
applying is the word, though.
Executing, Yeah. Just before we jump on, Emily, you got my phone? I forget. I've got this new segment, and this is Ep 1, so I've forgotten the questions for it. Thank you. Just quickly, though, where can people find you? And you mentioned a little course there too, which obviously, if you had that back when you were saying you probably accelerate a few things, where can people find you? Our Unfiltered Reno, and where can you find the course too?
Yeah, so it's named Your Unfiltered Reno. So basically, it's not the course for, about paint colours and floor coverings. It's the course about strategic planning, who you need in your corner, how to build your team, how to fund things, and, really getting those preliminary stages right so that you don't get to day dot and go, oh, this is a nightmare. And then we offer private coaching as well. So for anyone who actually just wants someone to come along their journey with them, because the unexpected can happen. We also offer, the one-on-one or two-on-one type service here on the Gold Coast for that. So, Your Unfiltered Reno, and for anyone who wants to know more about sort of what we do or our investor network, everything's there on the website. And, Toby and I are a very open book, and we're open to sort of any conversations for anyone wanting to come up in like this kind of space, because we know how important it was to us for people to be open to mentorship, I suppose.
I love it.
Yeah.
I heard this the other day. I loved it. The best businesses are the businesses created for the person you needed back when you started. Isn't that you? Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what that
that
is.
is literally,
because-
yeah.
That's one
Yeah.
of those ones that'll stick with you.
Yeah.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people would go into a reno, particularly a small one. And yes, we're doing development now, and that's our evolution. A lot of people stay in renos, and that's great. But I think a lot of people would go into the first one or the second one and go, I'm just going to fumble my way through it. And I think my question is why? Why do you feel like you need to do that when there is support there for you? So what we've created is actually so that you don't feel like you have to fumble. So you can actually go in like a professional from day one.
Yeah.
And that's why we were talking about the B word isn't budget, it's business.
It's business.
Yeah.
And it's another big one with the course is don't make the mistakes.
Yeah.
Do your best to negate as many mistakes as you can because there will be things that pop up on
Oh,
every single property. It does
100%,
not ever stop.
Yeah.
But if you can negate a lot of them, it will save you hundreds.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not buying a pair of shoes, is it?
No.
It's a bit of money.
No.
It's a bit of money. So take it serious.
We've got an agent that beat us out on a property that bought the property.
Yep.
And he didn't do a B&P and it's riddled with white ants. And that's from a professional. And those sort of things, it's even in the know.
It's costly.
If you miss one or two little things, and they can become very costly.
100%.
So.
right.
Great feedback. Great tips too. We'll finish on our Gold Coast Fast 5 actually. So this Fast 5 brought to you by Temp Therapy. If you're looking to step up your wellness game like me, or you're about to build your new project, wellness spots are getting in there, saunas. So,
Yes.
So these could be your guys. So reach out to the team at Temp Therapy. Mention code word SRAMA, SRAMA, and they'll give you 15% off their newest infrared range.
Awesome.
And they might
We'll be
even
in touch.
do it. They might even do a free installation too. So if you're listening, code word SRAMA, SRAMA, the lads at Temp Therapy. So the Temp Therapy Gold Coast Fast 5. First thing comes to mind. We might get one from each because they might be different. Who knows? But first one, favorite Gold Coast or like Tweed Coast beach? Palm Beach, for you?
Tally Creek, Palm Beach there
Tally
at the
Creek,
end.
yeah.
Yes.
Isn't it a vibe? It's just insane, eh? I know.
It's right there.
Favorite Gold Coast cafe or restaurant?
For a coffee in the morning, Jefferson Surf Club.
Very good.
Love that.
Dirty chai from there is the best I've had too.
They're so much fun.
Yeah, they're a vibe,
Beautiful
eh?
humans.
Yeah.
The tart location, so tart, but like
The
even
Burley or the Currumbin?
no, the Currumbin one. So like
Yeah,
just whatever's
what a
along there, even when it was the beach house or whatever. But just,
Yeah, fair call.
I'm so glad someone did something with that spot, eh?
Yeah.
Such a good
I
spot.
know it's so good.
Tart
Tom's down there on
Currumbin.
some
Yeah,
days.
yeah,
Doesn't
I'm
it?
getting a seat now.
What Gold Coast suburb are you keeping an eye on to invest in?
Loaded question.
Well, we're in we're into them. We're in them, but we see huge price disparity in mermaid waters.
Yeah.
Love
what we
Palm.
do.
Yeah.
Love Palm Beach.
Yeah.
It is our
know,
bread and
yeah.
butter. But
Yeah.
there's a big gap in mermaid. that
Isn't
is
there?
getting-
Yeah.
it's for the higher end stuff.
I have to
it's
hear.
getting
I've
filled
got a
at the
sneaky
moment.
one in Mermaid. I
Yeah.
want to do something with it. So let's talk off air, eh?
Let's
crunch some.
JB.
Yeah,
you
I
go.
agree. I agree.
Yeah.
It's the disparity. I love what you said there. I look at that like kind of suburb right next to it. Huge gap difference with sale price. So that's a free tip there from the best in the business. And then favorite holiday home outside of the Gold Coast. Where would that location be?
New York City.
I was going to say you had a big trip over there recently or
I
something.
fell in love with it.
Yeah.
Oh,
It looked full
fell
on.
in
Yeah.
love with
It
it.
just looks like just a city on
Mate,
steroids.
I was so fortunate that I got an amazing 40th birthday present from friends and family, and Alex lived there, and I was whatever America.
Yeah.
Fell in love with
Did
it.
ya? Yeah. Yeah.
The plan is to
What-
actually do a project there.
Yeah. Imagine that, eh?
Yeah.
We're actually
Yeah.
in the planning stages
Yeah.
now of doing
Yeah, it's
something
not just
in
a
New York.
dream.
So.
Yeah.
How much heavier did you come back?
Well, that's a loaded question too.
Yeah.
I went over pretty heavy.
Yeah. No, I just look at the food over there. I'm like, oh, I don't want to think about my diet over there. I would love to get amongst
Yeah.
all their
With
pizza
that, that being said, though, it's actually very easy to eat healthy.
Is
too.
it? Yeah, so it's
really
pretty
easy.
good,
So
yeah.
I was the
Everything's
alcohol
just
content.
bigger.
That's okay.
Everything's just bigger.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And lastly, where would I think we might have heard it earlier, but the dream home, where you building that?
Yeah, so if it's here on the coast, it's Jeffo's beachfront.
Yeah,
Toby wants a farm, so we'd like to have the option to have
Ooh,
both.
yeah.
yeah. I love that. I love that lifestyle. It
Yeah.
is. I was very fortunate to grow up with it. So
That's
definitely definitely Jefferson Lane. That's been a goal of ours for a couple of years. So that will happen.
Yeah.
And I'd love to have a condo in Manhattan, just like rent it
Yeah.
out and then we use it. And
Oh.
yeah, I really want the kids to experience like city
That
life
city, yeah.
growing up a little bit as well. So yeah,
That's not a bad little pyramid of homes there. You got New York, you got Tally Valley, and then you got Jefferson.
we better get to work.
Not bad.
We
not a bad
some lofty
lifestyle.
goals.
Well, I tell you what, knowing you guys, it's not going to be long.
We
I
will
bet.
get
I
there.
bet you.
Thank
So
you, mate.
I just want to say thanks again, and what a great first step. I went way over time because I don't know. I just knew
mate.
there was so much to unpack there, and we could have spoke for another hour, but. Yeah, I just think you're the epitome of what this podcast is going to be around, is buying Gold Coast, is to show people, educate them that if you are Gold Coast or Tweed Coast, you're an everyday person. You don't have to be this person. It's sharing the stories on the journey. So appreciate you guys, and
Thank you,
looking
mate.
forward to
Thanks so much for having
seeing
us.
the journey evolve.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, great to be here.